This is the Deals podcast, and today we're going to talk about mining in Argentina. I'm Paula Rojas, and I got my co host with me. Hi, Lucho.
Hey, Paola, how are you?
This is going to be a really interesting discussion. So let's dive into the topics. We're going to talk about potential scale of the opportunities that we're seeing, some of the mines, and more importantly, who is active. And we're going to give you a bit of a guide if you're an executive or if you're an investor, how to look at opportunities in the country. And we're also going to touch on the Milei factor. All right, so let's jump in. Lucha, we wanted to touch on 5 different minerals. Do you want to start with one in particular?
No, I mean, just a general comment, right? I mean, Argentina has been like the final frontier, right? I mean, people have talked about Argentina and gold potential and copper potential. Obviously, there's always been a natural resource potential in Argentina that's been huge. It's a big country and it's full of natural resources. Uh, the economic climate or the changing climate has always prevented, the potential to come out. Obviously, mining projects, as we all know, have this need to have this outlook of 10 to 20 years from discovery to development, construction and development to production. And that's a very long time in Argentinian economy and politics and in general, right? Yeah, there's obviously there's been a lot of talk about gold and silver projects. There have been gold and silver projects for a very long time out there. But the flavor of the month is copper. In the last couple of years, particularly some very large copper projects. You and I have been involved in lithium for a very long time, and that's still very much there, despite the ups and downs on lithium price. Uranium, I know little to nothing about, but it's also been hitting things. So, this is clearly a mineral-rich country, so a lot of potential. So I don't know which one you want to start with, Paula. Let's just dive in.
I think we could start with gold and silver, which is it's been really the main production. So for most of my career and the time that I spent there, the bulk of the activity and as a mining consultant when I used to live there, we used to work mostly with gold, silver, or sometimes silver, lead, zinc deposits. So I think we've seen a bit of a consolidation, if you will, in terms of that's okay. So that's what we do. That's we're there. There's a bunch of mines in the south, in Santa Cruz, and there's been not a lot of new mines because of what you alluded to just now. For some time, I thought, okay, so things are going to go down, it's going to kind of diminish. And it actually didn't because of gold. Like the value of gold has risen so much that it's kind of propping up the sector. So I think it was, in terms of that, I think gold and silver have been helping the country kind of keep that mining sectors alive. And despite all the problems, despite all the political nuance, which is, it's big, and we're going to get into that, especially the Milei factor by the end. So you want to stay for that. But I think that is sort of, it created the basis. Let's say that. It created a basis on what to build on. And then we saw the lithium triangle kind of balloon into this massive thing that really came out of nowhere for the country, I think, for most of the people over there. You and I met in a previous boom in 2008. I remember you came to Mendoza, where where my family still live, where I used to live. And we were, doing exploration for lithium and doing all those things that have progressed significantly in the last um, decade, really. So I think that's something that it's going to continue building momentum, and it's going to help the country really kind of go into the next stage. So I see gold and silver as kind of the basis or the foundation of the sector. And then you put on the lithium bit that has allowed it to grow and to expand much faster than people thought, because there were more players, right? So we saw so many new companies come in. And in terms of uranium, we did work with uranium while I was still over there, and we still kind of active there. But I think this opportunity, the fact that there is also a local reactor, that is also significant, but it's untapped. Like, there's a lot more potential. There's a local group, government group, a government agency that has studied the country very deeply. There's a few explorers. They have progressed, not as much in comparison, not as much as the lithium, but again, if you're looking for opportunities, it's something that is interesting to discuss. But then we come to I think the big thing, the big Kahuna. Is that Hawaiian? The Kahuna? I think so. Which is copper. We've talked about, like, you and I, we talk about copper a lot, but there's a reason, right? It's not because we're I don't know, freaks that love copper. This is a
No,
fundamental.
but I mean, listen. I mean, when I was at Center Bank, right, and based in Peru and managed the business for all of Latin America. I mean, again, I mean, a lot of the trips to Argentina were about where is the potential going to come, and we had a lot of interaction with our New York office, which service the Canadian clients and the juniors, right? But really, when you talked about Argentina and mining, we go back to the early part of the century, and it sounds like 100 years ago, but it was 25 years ago. You had Bajo de la Lumbrera producing copper, right? And you had Cerro Vanguardia, right? And then you got uh, with San Jose in the province of Santa Cruz, which was a smallish underground mine, very rich. You had, of course, already the Navidad discovery um, that is still there, and very quickly you could see that that was the dominant thing, as you were saying. Fast forward another, I don't know, probably 10 years, and you have the lithium boom, which effectively covers Jujuy, Salta, and maybe getting down towards Mendoza, but not right quite getting there, right? Um, and now you've got copper all over the place and uranium coming up all over the place. I mean, yeah, copper is the big one just because of the size. But the reality is that exploration is ongoing all over the place. I mean, a name that comes to mind is Abra Silver, that has a very nice silver discovery that's been growing throughout the years. It was orphaned. I mean, this is an old silver standard project, right? That's orphaned about a decade ago, and you got Fortuna that out of nowhere brought Veradero into production and was very concerned about the financing for that project, and it's been a success. You've had mining all over, over the last 25 years with a number of players. You're having the attention today of copper because of the size of the projects and because copper is really very, very hot and everyone's looking for size.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so you've mentioned the Alumbrera mine. So that was the only. There were some smaller, like very smaller, more operations, but the like officially the only copper mine for a long time, and then it got shut down because yeah, resources end. These things, they have their life, and it's the plan was to, and it was going to be, this is going to be the first of a bunch of giants that are going to come from Argentina, and that didn't happen, not because the giants are not there. And we're going to have a chart on screen now that has some there's a couple of international resources for comparison. So you have the big Resolution and Pebble Creek, but you also have a bunch of these deposits, and Mara, which was called Agua Rica, which was supposed to go and work in tandem with Alumbrera so that they could extend the life of mine, and that didn't happen because of social license issues, right? So that
I
got.
mean, and that's actually, I was thinking as I was hearing myself talk, 5 minutes ago, and you starting to go. I mean, Mara is the classic example, right, of how things just disappear and evolve and then get orphaned, etc. Right? You had Alumbrera and you had Agua Rica. Different shareholders, different moments. I mean, Agua Rica was originally Northern Orion and someone else. I mean, it
And
ended
there
up
was
with Yamana. Then it
BHPs.
went. I mean,
Was
yeah. And
BHPs.
so I mean, you had these assets that sort of changed hands, and as corporate deals get done, and Argentina is not the flavor of the month. I mean, other assets take precedent. I mean, Mara is not a new project. Mara existed a very, very long time ago, and it's
I
only
have
now. Yeah, I mean, it's only
personal
now coming.
story there. Did I ever tell you?
Yes, yes, you told me. I mean, I think the amazing thing is that if you've been around for a while and you followed these projects, and maybe it's a sad statement that we follow orphan projects, but I mean that's I guess that's why we can talk about them with a little bit of knowledge. Mara is not new. It's just now you've had finally a meeting of the minds and a meeting of the wills to make it happen. Now, is Milei the guy that made it happen? Is it a matter of circumstance? I mean, what is it around Argentina now that makes Mara happen 25 years later, if not more? No, so Mara's been around as a concept for a very long time.
Yeah. All right. I have the very short version of my story there is that it was Northern Orion, then it was BHPs. So my dad was actually leading that project for years. As a teen, we spent a summer in Andalgalá, which is the little town nearby. At
Wow.
the time, see, you didn't know this story. Okay,
No,
I
I,
thought you.
I, I didn't know that you spent time that summertime. I've been to that town. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So and it was so, like, the social license back then, it was so good. Like, we were hanging out in the central square. Everybody said hello to my dad because he was the big guy, the boss locally, because he was heading BHP Argentina for BHP. And we were having ice cream in the middle of the square. There were no issues. We were walking around with everyone like it was normal. And then the project progressed, and I don't know if someone, like, years, many years went by, obviously, because I'm not a teen anymore. But then it went. BHP ended up selling it because it was like, no, this is too complicated. It's too much. Like, sold it for what was like pennies. I think it was like 20 million or something like that. As if from memory, I can't remember. I'll find the exact figure to put it somewhere. But then it got kind of put into different companies, and now it's all coming together. And I think we should talk about Glencore in kind of, I think they're setting up for something big, and we can dive deeper a little bit further. But I wanted to have a quick slide here, and this is an image from Argentina Mining, which is the kind of main international conference that my family still runs. I used to run this. My family has been running this since I came to Australia. It's a really good place to go and do some due diligence on projects and people. And we can see the countries, the provinces where you can actually do, because it's a federal country, right? Those the dark color shows where there's mining currently. There's active mines, so it's not in the whole territory. Mostly you see near the Andes. It's because most of the things are near the Andes somehow. But I think we should jump onto who's active. A little bit of a very brief summary is the last 10 years have been kind of rocky for Argentina in many ways, but we can see for the impact that the recent the newish president has had, whatever he has done, and the fact that gold is such a big portion of the exports. We are seeing this year that the first 2 months of this year were a 10-year record for exports. And this is gold, silver, and lithium. It's, very significant.
I mean, you and I saw the influx of juniors. I mean, we were a junior, and we started with lithium in Argentina. We were a lithium junior, and we started in Argentina, and ended up dropping Argentina because of we didn't find what we were really looking for. In retrospect, if we had kept what we had, we would have done very, very well. I mean, instead we actually came to Chile and found that we had an excellent opportunity with one of the best salars, undeveloped salars in the world, and that will be a lithium producer at some point in time. Today it's in Codelco's hands, and we'll see. We'll have to see what happens with Maricunga. But the lithium story in Argentina has been nothing but fantastic, right? I mean, it's taken a very long time to develop, and it's still in what I would say very slow development. I mean, I remember when Lithium Americas was advancing in Cauchari, Oro Cobre was the first mover, if you will, of the juniors with Olaroz right next door. You already had what was at that time FMC, and you had Rincon sort of developing and stuff like that. I mean, now you've had a massive consolidation and a newcomer, if you will, a new entry, which is Rio, really adding to that. It's been great to see real money coming into into that market and developing. You still have a lot of projects in different salars, right down from Jujuy down to Salta in Argentina, with interesting lithium projects. You've had a volatility in the lithium market in terms of prices going up to $70,000 a ton, and back down to $10,000 a ton from the original $6,000 a ton when you and I started out in lithium. It's been a roller coaster, and I think it's not going to be easy. I mean, the market for explorers, and that goes directly towards, you have to separate the Maras of Argentina from the juniors of Argentina that are still going to be struggling because the equity markets are not there for juniors. And they might not be for a very long time. And that's not going to only affect investments in Argentina, it's going to be affecting investments worldwide, everywhere where juniors are present. But lithium has been a good move for Argentina.
So we talked about gold in Santa Cruz, which is mostly what we already mentioned, but there are a bunch of new project opportunities, and we've been reviewing, Lucho, we've been looking at many gold uh, projects in the south of the southern part of the country for clients. And the reality is that there are very good opportunities with lots of drill holes, lots of really high grade gold and silver results. And I think we're gonna start seeing more of those. I think we're gonna start seeing more deals of those. Of course, when we were talking about the lithium kind of boom, and we saw a bunch of deals in the sort of 3 to 5 million range. I think we're gonna start seeing, and we worked in a few, and one of our favorite case was Millennial Lithium, which was, it was still holding Lithium America and Lithium Argentina because of that deal. So it was a really good outcome for everyone. They sold it, and by the way, they sold that for it was the initial investment was 3 million or so, and then they sold that for 490 million, give or take. And they're doing that again, and we're gonna have them come on with a company, Surge Battery Metals, I think is the name. We're gonna talk about them. But going back to gold, I think we're gonna see kind of more deals in that space. I think the South is going to keep attracting that sort of, because the grades are, we're talking mostly epithermal, but there's really nice high grades. But then we bring back to the north, and yeah, it may have been lithium that kind of pulled back the veil of that region. But the first modern mine in a long time in Salta was, it started production 2020, gold, silver. And that's Fortuna Mining. And I think we're going to see a lot more there because the projects are there. So we haven't seen so much investor sentiment because the market is difficult. And if you happen to watch this, the week that is recorded, we're dealing with the insane level of tariffs now, which is, this is going to be insane. But the North is going to see that influx as well. And I think we're going to see a lot of deals in the north part of the country.
Okay, so here I was thinking as we were thinking about this, right? And I remember clearly, uh, Fortuna, and as they were building, you know, they're in construction. They're in construction out of, I mean, basically they're like many of the things that Fortuna has done. I mean, they did in Argentina, and they did it in Ivory Coast. They use their free cash flow to build up, right? To develop. And they were doing it in Argentina. And I remember getting a call saying, hey, we might want to look for financing for an extra $50 million just to have that cushion, and I was like, you cannot get that financing right. You might take a look at some Argentine bonds, et cetera, but financing was not available. Now, one thing is for someone like a Rio to get, financing, it's Rio. Glencore to get financing, it's Glencore, right? But if you've got a mine that needs 150 million dollars, that mine that needs 150 million dollars is probably not in the hands of a Glencore or a Rio, right? It's in the hands of a mid-tier to junior, emerging junior, if you will. So they're going to need project finance. Here's the challenge: there are very few project finance banks left in the market. It's that simple. That market has been decimated. And Argentina is still Argentina. So the few project finance banks that are still out there, they've got, lower hanging fruit than putting in a, 6 or 7 year project finance in Argentina. So financing $150 million project in Argentina is still going to be incredibly difficult. How does that, mid to small size company finance that project? No matter how good it is, Paula. I mean, now there's private equity groups, there's different there's financing groups that would look at it. But I mean, Argentina is going to scare off a lot of people, despite the good news that Milei might be bringing to the table. I think so. I think you're correct. You're going to see a lot of deals, a lot of projects, and some of the better projects are going to see the light of day. But the financing of those projects is still going to be a very big challenge. And I honestly don't know. I mean, what is the what does an Argentine province have to do to advance a project? They know, and they've been doing it. What does Milei have to do to attract the $150 million deals? Because there's probably 20 of them out there, relatively that you could count on relatively quickly. 150 million deals. I mean, that's you're talking a couple $1 billion worth of projects. I mean, it's not insignificant, but there needs to be. I, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough for Argentina to very quickly become a safe country for something like a project finance, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. It is Argentina, but my angle in and it was my dad's angle actually. Obviously, if you have a hammer, you see every problem as a nail. I know that. Like he was specialized in copper porphyries. He liked to see those, and he believed that the next, well, not the next, but the opportunity for Argentina was copper, and I believe the same. Obviously, he's no longer here to inspire us all, but I think
In spirit, he is. He will always be.
that's true. That's true. That's true. Maybe now, right now, he's talking through he's talking through me, and I'm gonna say what he would have said. I think everything you said is true, and it has been true for the longest of time. And what's different now is that we have a new, well, he's not new, he's been in office a bit over a year, but we have someone in office that understands what actually needs to be done. He's an economist. He understands what needs to be done for risk capital to come into a country with the characteristics of deep imbalances that Argentina has. So he has done some prep work. He has done some work in the economy. He has done a few other things that we'll mention in a second. But I think, and here's where the story with BHP sort of kind of comes full circle for me. So I spoke before about my dad managing this, being the leader in Argentina for BHP. What I didn't say is that BHP left the country altogether in, I think it was, what was it, 98? And it was not even a 98 or 2000, something like that. 98, I think it was. They left, they left. And you see now on the screen, this is from last year, from mid last year, when BHP and Landing completed their deal. And that's for a project called Filo and a project called Jose Maria, which are combined, they're about 6 billion pounds of copper. I think the deal was about 4 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe the thing is, these giants, because they're so big and we're talking, decades in production, maybe that's what's going to push. If Milei can keep things running and improving, then we start getting a couple of those giants in motion, and we can start seeing. So we go back to Glencore as well. Glencore CEO said this: Argentina is the next frontier for copper growth. No question. So that's another clue. They have been building. So they bought Mara from the various owners. The last portion they bought from Pan American Silver. And they have another project called Pachon. We're talking big projects. Here's Jose Maria. Here's Filo del Sol. Here's Mara. And here's Pachon. And here's Los Azules. These two are the US outliers, so they're much bigger. And I was just listening to an interview that they were doing with Rob McEwen, who was a client as well. So I've been to Los Azules. We worked there for years. This is I think it's about 35, 36 billion altogether. These are giants. They are big, big projects. They need a lot of money, yes. But this project, Los Azules, is slated for production in 2029. I don't know how he's going to do it up. We still own the stock. We believe in the long-term potential, and they have other mines, so it's not the only thing. But they have gotten support from Stellantis. So Stellantis invested in the private vehicle that owns Los Azules. McEwen owns the private 50% or so of the private vehicle of McEwen Copper. So I think maybe the solution, this was a long way of answering your question. I think maybe the solution is not in the mid range for the stability. Like we saw the foundation. Our foundation was gold and silver. Then we saw growth with lithium, and maybe inverted to what maybe in other countries would do. Copper is going to be the thing that actually makes this house work, because it's so big that it's going to set things in motion that are going to be too hard to stop once they get in motion. So if we go back to La Lumbrera, which was a mine that was producing for many years, I think it was about 2 decades, that faced a lot of opposition throughout its life. But once it got started. So, I think that's my thesis. So I think it's going to be somehow, and going back to things that we've talked about in other episodes about the small to intermediate miner, I would welcome to see that, a sort of a model for intermediate production in copper as well. But I think it's going to be easier for foreign companies to kind of build that, maybe in phases. Maybe it's going to take, instead of doing the whole build out and doing the whole capex, maybe they're going to do it in phases, and that's going to be cheaper. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're right that these big projects that are in the hands of the big companies are going to move ahead. Has big ambitions, and it's a great project, but might face more difficulties than a Glencore, for example, obviously. But it's good. The intention is there, right? I mean, the Landines are very interested, obviously, in Argentina. There are very, very big things happening in Argentina, and that's good to see, right? I take a look at Peru, and the mid sector that has been the fuel of the Peruvian economy for the last 30 years. That mid size that just keeps on going, which explains Peru's economic stability. One of example in Latin America, and that's due to the mining and the mid-sized sector, because you do not have the billion-dollar investments going on right now in Peru, few and far between. You're going to see them in Argentina, and that's great. In Chile, they hardly exist. I mean, they were always big. They didn't have that mid sector, but it's a mix and match, and you'll have to see. What is very relevant in Argentina is that every province decides their future in mining. Right? It's not the central government. The central government's always going to be important, but the provinces are more important than the central government in this particular case. That is why Navidad has faced such a huge problem, right? But that's also why lithium has thrived. I mean, in those in Jujuy and Salta, the provincial governments have been very proactive in attracting that investment, in ensuring that permits get issued, that things happen. Okay, they've provided the conditions for investment and for development, and they've been very proactive, taking a piece of the action in terms of an ownership, 5-8%, I think it is, depending on the province. But that's worked, and that's attracted. I mean, to get Rio to commit to Argentina, Glencore to commit to Mara the way they're committing, right? I mean, that means that the provincial governments are doing their job in bringing these big, big numbers in investment in their provinces. And of course, the central government, in this case, Milei, is also contributing.
Yeah, I think the fact that the provinces are the owners of the resource because of how the country is organized and how the mining code is written, that makes a big difference, and it allows for this different this difference of attitudes towards the activity in different provinces. So that's kind of, it has fueled the support in the north of the country. I think the south was kind of already semi-established by the time it was not semi, it was established by the time the lithium boom, the first lithium boom started to come. And I think the north of the country saw this opportunity. We're like, okay, so we don't have as much or as evident. They still have copper, gold, and everything. Really, it's a super rich country, but they saw the opportunity with lithium that was easier to find. These brine deposits I've talked about, brine in so much depth. It's because I really like those projects, because they're the exploration risk, the exploration investment, that it's all very reduced because of it's easier. It doesn't mean that every salar that you find is going to be a deposit, but it's a really good indication. And we were using that proactively when we were looking for projects and we were exploring for clients. We use that daily in our work, so it works. It's not just a concept. And the other point that you referred to, the fact that these, especially the province of Jujuy, they saw this opportunity to have, okay, so I'll help you, but I want to be in the game. I want to have skin in the game without putting a lot of money, but I'll give you virtually no money, I would say, most likely. But I will give you my support, and I will help, this ship move forward. So I think it was a very good outcome, and it has worked. It is working. You
I
don't get to record export without it.
No, no, no. I visited Jujuy when Cauchari was beginning its development, when Olaroz. I visited Jujuy, and I already had Maricunga, right, as a project in Chile. And it was the first time in my life that I said, you know what? I wish my project was in Argentina instead of Chile. And that's a hell of a statement when you
Yeah,
talk
it
about
is.
mining and you
Yeah.
basically say, you've always considered Chile the premier jurisdiction for mining in Latin America. So, copper is a different story. Gold might be a different story. With lithium, it was a particular situation, and it continues today. I mean, Chile is not competitive in lithium mining, period. Argentina is much more competitive. And Bolivia, unfortunately, my country is a bit of a basket case. So, let's leave it at that. The lithium triangle is not a lithium triangle. The lithium triangle is basically a lithium country, and it's called Argentina. Moving on,
I
right?
like that. We can use that as a quote. Um, let me.
I think the important thing is that Argentina has turned for the better, and that's, in terms of big scale mining, and that has two main things to thank to be thankful to. Number one, the copper price and and the future copper outlook, and two, Milei. Whether you want to put Milei ahead of the copper price or behind the copper price, it really doesn't matter. The fact is that it was a little bit of the perfect storm. You add to that friendly provincial government, and you've got something good going on for Argentina. So congratulations. Let's make it last. So
Yes.
let's have some more selfies like the Lundins and Pablo Mir with Milei, right? I mean, I don't really think I want to see Elon Musk with Milei again, but that's a different story. Let's just stick to mining and see more of that and see more discoveries and hopefully a friendlier market for the juniors to continue exploring and really push for the discoveries of the mid-tier projects and find some creative ways of financing. Hopefully, I mean uh, that's where your and my market sort of come from, right? I mean, when we look for those mid-sized opportunities. So I think we hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, at some point, I remember talking to someone. This was years ago. Who was interested in buying McEwen, and they had a price in mind, and I thought, yeah, I think that's a little low, and I think I either had a conversation with him or, and obviously, yeah, it was like, no, this is too low, and I think it's going to pay off for him to wait. But going to the Milei factor that I'm calling it, I think you're right. I think it's like a perfect storm of those two things, and I think nothing happens by accident. I believe that nothing happens by accident, and I think these different pieces that of the puzzle that are needed is, one is having someone in office, which is this guy Milei, who understands how to work with the world, and we have that. We have supportive prices. Of course, right now we're kind of dealing with a self-inflicted situation with the Trump's tariffs, but hopefully that's going to sort of get more clear in the near term. And then one thing, so one of the things that has been different from Milei, instead of not just the general, oh yeah, I want more investment, come, but they have already done decisive actions. And one is a new regulation that was put forward that's called RIGI. So it's kind of a regimen, a system for big investments. Basically, that's what the acronym stands for. My eyes is shaking. I don't know. So if you can see my eyes shaking, I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's just doing its thing today. That regimen is basically helping with the exemptions, with VATs, deferments, and different. We can get into that in another podcast because it's a whole thing. And we had one planned, and then something happened and we didn't do it. But that is just giving them giving companies an incentive to come with big investments. So it's like, okay, and when we're talking big, we're not talking billion necessarily. I think the range is between 200 million and 800 million or 900 million. So but still, it's, it's, we're getting towards the 1 billion. It's going to be big. McEwen has applied to that, so they are in that sort of camp that can use that regimen, and I think that's the piece that was missing. So if we're going to see more money coming in, you need to give this new money a lot of incentives, and you have to do it, and yeah, maybe that was the it factor. And Milei, I think he's crazy enough to gain attention, and that's how he ended up to become a politician, because he was kind of an entertainer, and he's crazy enough to gain attention. He's smart enough, and he's super smart. He's smart enough to know what needs to be done, and he is decisive enough to do things that were needed. So he's tackled inflation. Inflation has fallen off a cliff. It's much, much lower now. It's still a lot. There's still a lot to be done. And he said it like, this is going to take decades. He said it to the population. But, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be good if he can remain in office for the end of this. I don't think this term is in question, but for another term, I think it's going to give a very good foundation for years to come. And if we can get one new big copper, I say we, it doesn't matter if we're involved or not, I'm going to still feel it as we, I'll invest in it. If we can get one big mine in production, and it looks like it's maybe Los Azules, so already in, then we're off to the races, I think.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. It's gonna be good to see. It's gonna be good to see, and I think it's been fun talking about things that we've been following for a very long time, like Mara, like you follow Los Azules, right? And see them come to fruition in a country that has always faced challenges because of the political instability, right? I mean, we'll have to see how that develops. But I think it's stay tuned for Argentina. Stay tuned for how that mid-tier develops on the back of the big dollars that can be coming in. And then, if there's some good mid-tier projects that you've got on your radar. I mean, I know a couple of geologists that are friends of ours, all of that have projects in Argentina in gold and uranium that they want to talk to us about. And we need to start exploring a little bit more how to get creative on trying to get some funds for that and give it a go, right? I mean, try to ride on the coattails of some of the big projects and see how we can make a go at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of summarizing way of saying. And you wanna, if you're interested, if you wanna, and not that the podcast was a promotional episode, but it's something that we worked on a lot, and we're really keen to see more. Yeah, we can some creative deals, because between the finding the deals, which is always really good fun, and finding creative ways, which I know, Lucho, is one of your favorite things to do. You are really good with some creative structures that we can do. All right, well, that was the end of this episode. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this, please subscribe and like and turn on the bell so that you can get notified. And we're going to do a similar episode for Peru, so that will be coming up soon. So that's it for today.
Thank you, Paola. This has been great. Some good memories. And yeah, we look forward to your feedback to this episode in Argentina, which we wanted to bring forth for you. Thank you, Paola.
Excellent. Bye.